there's two responses you could have. One response is to note there's 100 things that are wrong with the world and start to complain about all 100 of them. And the other response is just to pick one single thing that you can do that might make a difference. The first companies in the world rolled out their website in January of 1994, and now it's May of 1994. And we're sitting in a podcast, you're saying, well, Michael, are you surprised that more companies aren't, rolling out websites or don't appreciate the web? And I'm like, well, it's really year one. And give it 4 more years. Right? Give it 10 more years and you'll see that the consensus will be, of course you need a website, just like, of course you need Bitcoin. The best possible situation is to run an economy with 12% inflation while I convince the people that it's 2% inflation, because the cost of capital really is 12%, but they think it's 2%. That news is just a curated stream of opinions. I think the modern era, the institutional era of Bitcoin adoption starts January 2024, right? And I think what changed in January 2024 was the SEC approved 10 to 11 spot Bitcoin ETFs.
Let's delve into Michael Saylor's profound insights on Bitcoin and its underlying ideology. According to Saylor, Bitcoin possesses the potential to address global challenges ranging from warfare and inflation to fostering global peace. He views Bitcoin's transition into a necessity as a pivotal moment, particularly catalyzed by the approval of the Bitcoin ETF in January 2024. Saylor predicts that gradual adoptions will continue to build upon this momentum in the years to come, with corporations, investors, individuals, families, and even sovereign states naturally gravitating towards Bitcoin ownership. He passionately advocates for Bitcoin as a technology that empowers humanity through cryptography, envisioning a future where it serves as a cornerstone for individual empowerment and financial sovereignty. As we bring you clips from the interview, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn post notifications for more video like this. You can join the conversation by dropping your thoughts, comments, and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel growth. Thank you and enjoy the video.
And that started an avalanche, and I think today there's like 24. There's 22 last week, and there were 2 added in London or getting added. So we went from a perception that this was not an endorsed or legitimate asset class at the regulatory level. And someone could have said, I think the SEC is going to ban it, or they're going to deem it a security or something. And the world changed by the middle of January. And now it was clear that it wasn't going to be banned. And then at the same time in January, the accounting profession offered fair value accounting. They changed the accounting guidelines, and they made it optional starting in January and mandatory next January. So in a regime where it is uncertain whether the administration will deem Bitcoin a commodity or security, and they haven't definitively spoken, and in a world where the accounting profession requires that you adopt indefinite and intangible accounting. Indefinite and intangible accounting is the most toxic, prejudicial, discriminatory accounting treatment you can have. If I didn't want you to buy something or invest in something, I would give it indefinite intangible accounting, because that means you can only write it down. You can never write it up. If a normal company bought $1 billion of Bitcoin and it traded down 30% and then traded up 150%, they would be showing a $300 million operating loss. If you look at the 42,000 publicly traded companies and you went to a CFO in 2023 or 2022 and you said, I think I want to buy Bitcoin, they would have said, well, the accounting's a real problem. The accounting is going to, let me tell you how much of a problem it is. It's going to obscure all of your P&L and all of your balance sheet such that your EPS doesn't have any useful information anymore. And it means that any investor is going to have to reconstruct their own view of your business. So it takes financial reporting from something where I can look at a glance in 30 seconds and figure out whether you had a good quarter, to I have to spend 3 hours thinking about it. And so that's kind of a non-starter. So I think that we're late May, and the era of institutional adoption for Bitcoin started in January. And it's like if you went back to 1994, and we say, well, the first companies in the world rolled out their website in January of 1994, and now it's May of 1994, and we're sitting in a podcast. You're saying, well, Michael, are you surprised that more companies aren't, rolling out websites or don't appreciate the web? And I'm like, well, it's really year one, and give it 4 more years, right? Give it 10 more years, and you'll see that the consensus will be, of course, you need a website, just like, of course, you need Bitcoin. That Bitcoin it's an asset, and that makes it the ideal treasury asset. That makes it a solution for every corporation in the world, and every investor, and every family, every individual. It's also a technology, but it's a technology for human empowerment, right? And I think Peter Thiel pointed out that cryptography and giving strong encryption to the individual, it shifts the balance of power away from the corporation and away from the central entity, whether it's a government or a big corp, and it shifts it back to the individual. And that movement started with PGP, and pretty good privacy.
Pretty good privacy, PGP. Imagine a digital world where every message you send feels like sealing it in an envelope and sending it through a secure postal service. This is the essence of pretty good privacy, PGP. A groundbreaking security program that revolutionized digital communication. This digital age, where emails fly through cyberspace like letters in the wind, PGP stands as the guardian of privacy and security. Developed in 1991 by Paul Zimmerman, a visionary political activist, PGP was born out of a need to protect sensitive information from prying eyes. At its core, PGP functions like a virtual lock and key for your emails. It encrypts messages, rendering them unreadable to anyone without the proper decryption key. This ensures that only the intended recipient can unlock and read the contents, shielding your correspondence from interception or surveillance. But PGP is more than just a digital vault for messages. It also serves as a digital notary, allowing users to verify the authenticity of emails through digital signatures. Just as a handwritten signature confirms the sender's identity on a physical letter, a digital signature confirms the sender's identity in the digital realm, safeguarding against tampering or forgery. This is what Michael Saylor tries to emphasize for Bitcoin, providing an atmosphere for advancement of security, privacy, and decentralization for all of mankind. Let's get back to the video.
And it was simmering. It just, and I knew it went on because a lot of people at MIT were very much into it. And one of my MIT friends, Simpson Garfinkel, wrote a book on pretty good privacy. And so I followed a little bit, but it was never an existential, I never had an existential threat, and I never had a mortality experience or near-death experience where I needed it to survive, right? So I started appreciating Bitcoin not just as an asset, but as a technology. And then once you understand the technology, how do you empower someone with whatever, all their money in their head or in their hands? And how do you empower someone to move all their assets from here to there without asking permission? That leads you to the ideology. The ideology is based upon a protocol that empowers technology, that creates an asset. But ultimately, the ideology is, self-sovereignty, privacy, individual rights, and, the sovereignty of the individual, and also property rights and freedom. And I think that once I got involved, I started looking for a solution to a treasury problem. So I kind of got involved because I had an economic problem. And then in the research, it leads you to understand the technology and appreciate the combination of cryptography and proof of work and energy. And then once you start following all the Bitcoiners, you get drawn into the ideology. And then in the ideology, people start to cause you to question basics. For example, what is inflation? I would have accepted the party line inflation as CPI, and then as soon as you realize inflation is not CPI or inflation, and you can generate as many inflation metrics as you wish to generate, then you realize, well, I can just cherry pick any inflation. And so the best possible situation is to run an economy with 12% inflation while I convince the people that it's 2% inflation, because the cost of capital really is 12%, but they think it's 2%. And the difference of the 10% I get to give to anybody else I want, right? So like every pension is indexed at CPI, so I'm raising your pensions at 2%. I'm inflating the money supply at 10 or 12%, right? And that leads you to question a lot of things. Well, if the inflation rate isn't correct, then maybe GDP isn't correct. How do you actually measure gross domestic product, if it's not inflation adjusted? And I think the CEO of Microsoft, made a point, a very quiet point no one noticed, which is, the economy is shrinking. It's not growing. In nominal terms, people will perceive the economy to be growing, but once you put in place the right inflation rate, the economy is shrinking. Nobody in the modern era wants to admit that their national economy is shrinking due to political policy. And what about unemployment? How can you have an unemployment rate of 2 or 3% when 45% of the people don't have a job? Like what's the definition of unemployment? Well, we only count people as unemployed if they wish they weren't. So all of these metrics that talking heads on TV, they argue about, they're all synthetic faux metrics, and you can build an entire world and a trading strategy and an ideology around synthetic, cherry-picked false metrics. Or once you discover Bitcoin, you start thinking, well, if the GDP's not right and the unemployment's not right and the inflation's not right, then what is right? And so I think that the Bitcoin opened that door for me, and it caused me to question a bunch of other things I'd taken for granted. And that leads you to, read, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And then it leads you to read everything by Murray Rothbard, A History of Economic Thought, and you discover Austrian economics. And then it causes you to go back and you rethink all of history. Like I go back and I reread the history of the world. If you read Durant's Story of Civilization, he wrote 15,000 pages on the world. Most people didn't read 15,000 pages of world history when they were 18 years old. But if you did, you didn't understand inflation, and you didn't understand money, and you didn't understand politics, and you hadn't lived through a war. And so you misinterpret or you shallowly interpret what's going on. When you go back and you read history again, after you've lived through an actual war or a currency meltdown, or you live in 2020, right? You see one part of the economy being destroyed, another part of the economy being lifted up by the political action of a few people. And then you watch the media and you realize there's one set of media that doesn't even recognize there's a problem. And there's another set of media that takes a totally different point of view. And then you realize that news is just a curated stream of opinions. And if you wanted one set of opinions, you could watch one set of channels. If you want another set of opinions, you watch the other set of channels.
It's like anyone. You have your eyes opened. You question everything. But for you, what does that mean? What do you do with this now?
Once you realize that so many things that you took for granted aren't necessarily so, and it caused you to open your eyes toward a bunch of things in the world. Well, there's two responses you could have. One response is to note there's 100 things that are wrong with the world and start to complain about all 100 of them. And the other response is just to pick one single thing that you can do that might make a difference. My view is, how do you fight, something which is so entrenched in the civilization that the harder you push, the harder it pushes back? And the answer is you have to introduce a new idea that will go viral. So, for example, Bitcoin, is a new idea. You could view it as freedom technology, a freedom virus. And you can also view it as a monetary virus to give sound money to the world. So if I want to give freedom and sovereignty and dignity and empowerment to 8 billion people, I don't loudly scream that their overlords ought to stop leaning on them. I'm not going to topple every government and every corporate overlord and everything. So what I do is I introduce a new technology that spreads virally. And if I want to give property rights to 8 billion people, I introduce a new technology. And when you introduce a new technology, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. I think when you say, you're wrong, you're stupid, I'm smart, do it my way, change your way, right? The louder you say that, the harder someone pushes back against you.
That's like parenting.
You create inflammation.
Yeah.
Right? And there are examples in our political system where certain political parties, their position is the other party is wrong, we're right, they're stupid, we're smart, do it our way, and give us credit and blame them. I think that the more elegant way is to introduce a new idea, Bitcoin. What is it good for? Oh, it'll be good for your family. What else? It'll be good for your company. What else? Oh, it'll help your bank. What else? It'll help your state. What else? It'll help your city. It'll help your country. What else? Well, you want to fight a war? It'll help you win the war. You disagree with X, it'll help your political party. You want to win an election, it'll help you win, right? What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is good for you, right? Bitcoin is empowerment technology that will allow you to be the best version of yourself. Who's losing? Nobody's losing. Who's wrong? Nobody's wrong. Everybody's just better with this. Is better living through technology.
There you have it. Michael Saylor's profound grasp of Bitcoin's ideology is truly remarkable. In his view, the essence of the Bitcoin ideology lies in its ability to empower technology to bestow self-sovereignty, privacy, individual rights, property rights, and freedom upon every individual across the globe. Hope you got some value from this video. Please drop your comments and observations in the comment section, subscribe to the channel, and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.